I will call the MPO Policy Committee meeting to order for Friday, April 11th at 1:30. Introductions. I'll begin to my left.
Andrew Seabor, serving as proxy for Mayor Thompson.
Lisa Ridge, Monroe County.
Hopi Strasburg, City Council.
Scott Ferris, Monroe County Plan Commission.
Dan Swafford, Town of Ellisville.
Chris Woolman with NDOT.
Nate Nickel, City of Bloomington Public Works Department, serving as proxy for Adam Wason, Public Works Director for the City of Bloomington.
Jason Bannock, Indiana University.
And then we have online members. If you want to introduce yourself first, John.
John Kennedy, Vice Chair.
And Jody.
David Henry, David Henry, County Council.
Jody.
Jody Madeira, County Commissioner.
Okay. And just a reminder, for any voting items, you must be have your camera on. Moving to approval of the meeting agenda. Would need a motion.
I move approval of the meeting agenda.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Do I have any comments from the board? Any comments from the public? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Okay, for approval of the agenda, Hopi Strasburg,
Yes.
Andrew Seabor,
Yes.
Dan Swafford,
Yes.
Nate Nickel,
Yes.
Jody Madeira,
Yes.
Chris Woolman,
Yes.
Lisa Ridge,
Yes.
John Kennedy,
Yes.
David, I don't think, David Henry is on video, yes.
Yes.
Scott Ferris,
Yes.
Jason Bannock,
Yes.
motion passes.
All right, moving on to approval of minutes of March 14th, 2025.
I'll move to approve the minutes from March 14th, 2025 as presented.
We have a motion and we have a second. Do we have any comments from the board? Any public comment? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
For the approval of the minutes, Chris Woolman,
Yes.
Lisa Ridge,
Yes.
Hopi Strasburg,
Yes.
Andrew Seabor,
Yes.
Nate Nickel,
Yes.
Scott Ferris,
Yes.
Jason Bannock,
Yes.
David Henry,
Yes.
Sean Kennedy,
Yes.
Jody Madeira,
Yes.
Dan Swafford,
Yes.
motion passes.
All right, communications from the chair or vice chair. I do not have anything today. John?
As Vice Chair, I don't have anything for today, and would it be okay to give the report from the CAC?
Sure, when we get down here to reports on the next item, that'd be great.
Okay. All right, then the CAC met the end of last month. In our meeting, we recommended that the policy committee approve the two items that are on today's agenda, the TIP and the UPWP. And most of our meeting was presentation and discussion of the data and pictures in the crash hub. That's
All right.
it.
Thank you. From the Technical Advisory Committee?
Met on March 26th, and we reviewed the new business agenda items that we're looking at here today and recommended approval of both.
Thank you. Moving on for reports from the MPO staff. I think Katie's going to kind of go through them, have a pause in between some of the items, so if you have questions, please let her know. So we'll let her begin with item A.
Okay, the fiscal year 2026 to 2030 tip document that was adopted by the Policy Committee on March 14th. It has been submitted to NDOT, Federal Highway, and Federal Transit for final review and hopefully approval. The 2050 MTP document that was adopted by the Policy Committee on February 14th has been submitted by MPO staff to NDOT for final review and approval.
Scott?
I had requested at the February, in the February timeframe of the MPO to include a comment in the long-range portion for NDOT, specifically on page 67, that would state something to the effect of State Road 45 intersection improvements from Pete Ellis Drive to Discovery Parkway to Russell Road. It was not included. And because if you look at the data, the letting dates for that particular project, it started in 24, it went to 25, and now it's in 2030, but the time frame in 2030 really is in fiscal 31. I make the argument that is long range. And based upon the history of these projects, which started in 2005, and then 2010 and 11, and then recently, when I introduced it back in 2018, 29, the projects continue to move to the right. We need to put on the record that, in fact, this is a project that is on NDOT's scope. And so I would formally request that you take and amend or add or whatever you need to do to that particular document to include that particular project. And I welcome comments from anybody else in support of what I'm saying.
And for well, this is a very unsafe area. In addition, we're in a situation where with the all-stop situation, actually it raises the rodents, according to many, because some are not following protocol there.
You keep, we just lost Jody, looks like.
Yeah.
Can you hear us now, Jody? We can see you, Jody, but we can't hear you.
She's frozen again.
Yes, I just got thrown offline by something. Can you hear me now? Okay, yes, I was pretty much done. The commissioners have had a lot of residents complain to us about that as well. We understand that NDOT will basically issue a permit if the city can find funds. We very much support Scott's proposition.
Maybe a question for staff. So this is being presented as an update on the 2050 MTP that that this body voted on and approved. And so for any amendments to happen, would we need to have it as a future agenda item with some, I just don't know what the process is here.
Projects that were identified as short range and as long range, in other words, beyond the current tip, were approved through NDOT because we asked for that review, and NDOT agreed with what was identified in there. And so that's what came before this committee when it was adopted in February 14th of this year. We then submitted that document to NDOT for approval. It's still in the review and approval process. If we were to amend something that we've already adopted and it's still in the review, and I mean, the question is, do I call it back?
Can I be recognized, please?
Scott?
As you well know, there were some comments when we discussed the MTP that you, in fact, the MPO and staff, in fact, went back and made changes to. Those changes that you made and were published in an adopted version did not come back to us for us to approve the comments that you put into that document. Zero, we talked about the zero sum gain in population, in which you provided new language, and you actually listed as projects which were missing, and I can give you the page numbers. You end up adding that after it was adopted, but you didn't bring back those changes to us for any type of approval. And so what I'm suggesting is what I'm recommending you add, requesting that you add, would fall in that same vein. If you're going back to what the engineer back here was asking.
Yeah, the NDOT and ourselves agreed. We identified the State Road 45 corridor project from the bypass to Russell Road. We identified that as a near-term type of project. And then we did not want to identify the last segment of that project as a long-term project for fear that that would be what I would call lowering the priority of the project. So the entire corridor is identified as a near-term project. In other words, it's a commitment. And then the next update of the MTP will come along in 3 years, and that will put us at 2028, and then we can make a decision if we still want to make it long-term or whether we want to make it near-term. I mean, the judgment and the agreement was that State Road 45 corridor is a near-term project. Last thing we wanted to do was lower the priority on the project.
The playing field shifted when the letting date changed. And I will argue, or I will agree with what your point was with respect to that being a short-term project before the letting dates were pushed to the right. When you're pushed all the way into fiscal 31 and based upon the history, and if you just do a little bit of analysis here, there's probably a strong possibility that letting date will continue to push to the right. Outside of 5 to 6 years is not short-term, that is long-term. And if you're going to make the argument that it is still short-term, then somehow you got to define what short, mid, and long-term is, so we can use that as a point of reference. Next point, we have the NDOT rep here. We can ask the NDOT rep whether or not they agree or disagree with what I'm proposing.
I can speak to that if that's okay. I'm kind of with Pat here. We would probably classify this as a short-term project because we have funding set aside in the TIP document for PE and right-of-way, even though that project has moved out and construction beyond the TIP, but we're still actively working on it. So I would consider that a near-term project because we are actively working on it. So, I mean, whether you call it near-term or long-term, we're actively working on it. NDOT supports it. I don't know what else you want. I mean,
my major point here is getting it on the books and have it listed as a project.
It is currently on the books as a short-term project. The MTP states that short-term projects are things scheduled in the next 5 years that are programmed and fiscally funded.
This is not scheduled in the next 5 years.
They do have updates to the road scheduled in the next 5 years. In 4 years, when the next MTP is written, it may continue to be in the MTP as a short-term project.
I don't agree with your argument. It's still FY31 when in fact you have a let.
And we look at projects in terms of are they funded for preliminary engineering?
I can't hear you, Pat. Please speak up.
And we look at the projects in terms of are they funded for preliminary engineering, and this one is.
This whole project, going all the way back to 2005, has a lot of history, and a lot of it's not positive history. And you have folks sitting in this room going back that far when they know what I'm talking about. You even had the governor of the state of Indiana talking about this back in 2005 as something that was necessary. This is Mitch Daniels. It was started, it was stopped, and then it was started and stopped again in 10 and 11. And here we are again, we're still talking about, this is 25 years by the time you're going to have a contract in place to actually start doing any work. That is a real issue. And it has not been acknowledged in all the discussions we've had going all the way back to 2018, 2019 in this forum. This is a sentence, this is a sentence in a document. But yet it puts a marker on the table on the significance and the importance of this project where it has been lacking in the past.
Respond that we see the sentence in the document as saying that it's a near-term project, and we want to keep it as a near-term project. We don't want to lower the priority of the project and saying it's long-term.
I think David has a question or a comment.
Thank you for recognizing me online. I guess if I heard a point of order on the phone, I'm just trying to track the conversation here. Just for my own clarity, are we, as I've heard the discussion develop here, I heard Mr. Seabour say and ask if this is requiring an amendment process to add into the tip. If that's yes or no, what is that process? I think I've also heard Mr. Ferris say whatever the process was for an edit that was done to the tip, he would like the same edit done to the document. So I'm trying to look for some clarity here. Are we looking for a motion to amend something, or are we looking for a process to add something in? As I'm trying to understand that on the phone. And while we're all mulling that, my second comment and question maybe for staff is, when we say 5 years, are we saying fiscal year or are we saying calendar years? Because one could make an argument fiscal years is a 5-year window as we start an FY, at a certain point on the federal calendar and state calendar a little differently. Can we get a clarification on that one? Thanks.
Yeah.
In terms of the transportation improvement program and the statewide transportation improvement program, the Metropolitan Transportation Plan in 5 years will be replaced with a new plan looking at the year 2055. So what we're looking at is the transportation improvement program, because that's much more fluid in terms of project progress. We see the State Road 45 corridor is making significant progress right now, as is, and we see no reason to show that project as a long-term project when it's currently progressing as a near-term project. That's all I can say.
So I think a little bit of the confusion here, because I was starting to get a little bit confused myself. So we have the 2026 and the 2030 tip. That is the more current funded projects that are most likely under contract, they're funded, they're going ahead in the process. The 2050 long-term plan, I will call that, is basically today's projects, but also what we see in the future, but it does not have any funding commitment. The project that is of concern right now, the Pete Ellis Drive to Russell Road for State Road 45, is in our current TIP, 2026 to 2030. It is a funded project. And I think a lot of the concern that I've been part of some of the conversations of the four-way stop that's been installed. Are there any other solutions while this is under design that maybe the city, the county, and granted, the county doesn't have any, we don't have an intersection there. It's city, it's state. But if it can help to work with any of the MPO funding on how we allocate it, is there something that we can do as partnering to help the situation? It sounds like a traffic signal has been suggested. I'm not an engineer, so I can't sit here and say that that's better than the four-way stop. Typically, it is your next step besides a four-way stop. So I didn't know if that's an avenue that's been looked at NDOT, if it's a possibility. I know NDOT has stressed that they would work with permitting and such. I think the problem is funding, but, and I'm not sure of what we're looking at for cost at this point, We might be able to work with our engineers that we have with the city, the county, come up with, if it's even feasible, that we can afford something. I'm just throwing that out there. I think that's kind of where the, maybe, like I said, the confusion got between the 2026, 2030 TIP and the 2050 long-range plan. So,
Current document. And then the Indiana Department of Transportation's statewide transportation improvement program, the STIP, is currently open for comment right now, public comment. That's in a 30-day public comment period, I think, right now. And it mirrors, or we mirror, what they have. So the project's shown as being committed and underway right now.
so we are to that next step. It's not like we're in 2005 again.
No.
And I see that, but I think there's still a lot of concern and with the residents out there of what could be done right now while it is going under design and while it is under right-of-way.
Yeah, and we,
Yeah.
Lisa,
Thank you.
NDOT looked at what we could do short-term, low cost to help with the situation. We installed the all-way stop, did a little vegetation clearing. We recognize that's a short-term solution to get us to while we wait for the final project. If the city, county, the MPO, whoever wants to do something more intensive there that fits within the final scope or the purpose and need of the final scope, we're willing to partner with you all. Either if it's 100% local funds, we could do it through a permit. If it's federal aid, it would come through NDOT system, and we would have a review of that. But we'll have engineering resources to help, and maybe partner with that. We could look at that option too. I want to reemphasize we're in support of the project. It's just a timing issue with us and funding. So.
Hi, this is Jody. I just don't think residents understand that the four-way stop was intended to be temporary and that temporary meant, multiple years. And so that's what we're hearing. And actually, I was going to devote, some time in board member comments later on to requesting that the city actually find a way to fund this sooner out of their own dollars than 2030, because I think this situation is going to continue to get worse until this problem is taken care of.
I'm interested in hearing from our city engineer, who happens to be here today, about the, if he can speak to it, about the that particular location and the idea of a stoplight versus the stop sign, versus any other not thought of temporary improvement to that intersection. I don't know if you're prepared to talk about that at this point, but I think that that's part of my interest at this moment.
Sure. I guess the city has not been involved in the study of this intersection. NDOT's taken the lead, and I'm assuming implemented this change to address safety as being a priority, and generally I support and trust their staff in making that determination. And I also appreciate that they do have an active project under, I think, contract even to do the design work of this. And so the reality is if a signal wanted to be designed, there would still need to be another contract, and all of this still takes time, and then there's limited time before the long-term improvement happens. And so just, I guess, trusting that NDOT has evaluated this and that it is a positive step forward, and recognizing it's not the long-term solution, and that is already in process by NDOT on NDOT's facility. But the city has not specifically evaluated this intersection or looked at alternatives, given it's managed by NDOT.
Just a data point. As I've been doing my reading, I see that the city is now, as part of their Safe Street for All initiative, is looking at 10th Street from between Morton and Indiana, and it's all based upon safety concerns. I have heard some make the argument that the discussion with respect to the city ends at the bypass. And I don't know if that's true or not, that's just what some have told me, but that's beside the point. 10th Street, which is State Road 45, has just, if not more, safety concerns between the bypass all the way out to Russell Road, for those of us who live in that area. That little dip between Grandview to Smith Road, just drive out there. Matter of fact, if you want, I'll drive you out there and show it to you. We've had a fatality there. There's actually been 2 fatalities on 45 within the last few years. There are no sidewalks. There's no shoulders on the roads. We get, even though we just put those stop signs up, I have seen the little 500 crew, they come zipping down that hill as they're going east, and they just run right through those stop signs. They don't even stop, and that's just an accident ready to happen. That's an unintended consequence to what happened. They're not adhering to the rules of the road. We don't have turn lanes, we don't have sidewalks. I have literally seen women pushing baby carriages on the side of the road going west from Smith Road down to Grandview, up on that where there's no shoulder. I've literally seen people walking on the side of the road all hours of the day as people are coming over the top of that hill going east from Grandview to Smith Road, which is extremely dangerous. This is a safety issue. And 10th Street goes all the way through the city out to the county and includes the state. This issue is going to balloon one of these days, and we're going to have another fatality.
Scott, thank you so much for sharing your concerns about this road and also the history of it. I really appreciate that. I also, am frustrated when some of the state roads just don't have proper pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure. Your concern for this road is definitely valid. If you are interested in seeing if the city could include this section of 10th Street as part of their 10th Street study, you can contact Ryan Roebling about that. There's kind of a separation between the two. So I'm not sure that that's going to be in their scope. Plus, they've already been doing a lot of public participation for that particular segment. So I'm not sure that at this time it can be included in that study. At this time, NDOT has this on their short-term list. They will continue to evaluate it. A stop sign at Smith is a first step that's required before installing more expensive infrastructure. And in 4 years, it will continue to be under evaluation. It may also be in the TIP for it may also be in the TIP for 2030 to 35 as a short-term project. It may continue to be on their list. So MPO staff, we at this time don't see a reason to put it on the long-term list, as it will continue to be prioritized by NDOT at this time. If it is not prioritized, then we will ask NDOT why at that time.
And if it's not prioritized, when's the next window for this to be included as a long-term project?
That is up to NDOT and their traffic studies and the data that they collect on that road, as well as their funding limitations. I do truly understand what you're trying to say, but as long as it's on the short-term list, we're okay. If for some reason there are additional changes and they decide in 2030 that it's not going to be prioritized, then we'll have to put it back on the long-term list. But currently it is at maximum prioritization where we want it to be. And they are aware of the concerns and are open to any thoughts we have.
So I'm asking for two things here, and I don't know where we stand on them based upon a lot of this discussion. One, I have a formal request to amend the adopted MTP to include what I had suggested previously. Do we need to put a motion on the floor to do that, or is this something that you're just going to say we're not going to do it?
Public comment period and voting on this document is passed. We don't really do amendments to the MTP. We do them to the TIP throughout the year. But
I brought this up at the February meeting before it was adopted, and I talked to Pat about it after the meeting. So public comment, I provided public comment.
true.
And I was under the impression that it was actually going to be included until when I reviewed the adopted version, which I asked you about, okay, I did not see it. I saw the other things that we talked about had been updated and included.
The vote did not pass under the condition that that project be included.
Say again, please.
The vote was taken, but not with the condition that
But the
that
vote that was
project-
taken on the adopted plan, but did not include the comments that came up that were, and the changes that were made after the vote was taken. And I'm talking about the
Yeah,
zero.
regarding those changes, so most of them were administrative Scribner errors. The additional language regarding population, that was something that was included as part of the vote.
That's
So-
not administrative.
Right, but the vote was taken with the condition that the MTP include language about the 2020 census and the impact of that on our possible impact of that on our population.
I
counts.
also talked about adding this to the long-range plan portion of NDOT during that meeting, and then it was between Pat and I, we discussed we would bring it up after the meeting because of the complexity of the topic, and I did not want to take all the time to explain all the things I explained here today. So, I mean, there's a disconnect here. You're telling me that it's already been adopted and forwarded, and what I'm telling you is that there was a request on the table and you did not incorporate it.
Yes,
And I'm telling you there's excuse me, and I'm telling you there's a valid argument about what is short-term and long-term. In the fact that there is history with the letting dates of pushing to the right, which consistently, over time, moved to the right because of prioritization at the state level on other projects around the state.
we hear you, and we responded to your email last week denying your request to add it to the long-term list.
You did not deny my request. You said that you actually thanked me for my thoughts
Yes,
as opposed to my request.
I said, at this time, it will remain solely on the short-term list.
Last time I checked, you're not the deciding body, you, the MPO staff. This is deciding body on what is in fact included in that document. So you individually denying something doesn't carry a whole lot of weight with respect to what this particular committee does. It's an input. And so that's why I brought it up today, because you did not respond to my latest comment when I sent you an email in response to what you said. Now, I'm going to get beyond this because we're just wasting everybody's time. So what I heard from you is that you're formally denying my request to include what I had suggested earlier with respect to the improvements from Pete Ellis Drive all the way down to Range Road. You're denying my request to include that as part of a long-range plan, even though it's pushed to FY 31, it's fiscal year 31, and probably beyond. You're denying that request.
We maintained the project on a short-term, immediate list in consultation with the Department of Transportation because they're the ones that gave us that identity. And what we did was we made sure that we were consistent with the Department of Transportation. Was there an effort to push it out? And the answer was no. It's an immediate term project. And so therefore, we saw no reason to go against their recommendations because it is their corridor and their project.
So please confirm with me you just denied that request.
Absolutely not. We made our request to the Department of Transportation. Should we move this out? Should we keep it the same? We kept it the same.
All right, noted.
I mean, I don't see the purpose of moving the project out when the project's already committed.
I don't see any need to push it beyond 2005, but it has been for whatever reason.
We have no idea what happened in 2005.
I have what? Actually, there is quite a bit of history out there, and if you do a little research, and I know you have, it's there. Because I believe we had people in this body here at that time. So it's out there. It's been documented by others, et cetera. I'll respond to your response. What you just told me is noted, okay? Second thing is that, and I was going to bring it up later, and it is with respect to replacing the three-way stop, always stop, with a stoplight. That is what is in the final plan, NDOT's plan, to put a stoplight there. By taking and putting an always stop into that area there and let it sitting there for 5 or 6 years and beyond, that is not a temporary solution. I've already explained the problems we're having with that intersection, particularly with the bike riders now, because they're not adhering to the rules of law or the law of the road. They're not doing that. It's not happening. It's just a matter of time before one of those bicyclists gets smacked because they're going cross-traffic to where the cars are turning. It's just a matter of time. What I am requesting, and I noted what you said about the current input for the Safe Streets for All for the 10th Street corridor. That is not the forum for us to bring that to. This is the forum to come up with a team, a collegial team of individuals who will actually sit back and take a look at this and potentially come up with a funding source, even end-of-year fiscal dollars that have been obligated but unspent. The city, the county, MPO, and even NDOT, there's always dollars there at the end of the year. You just need to go out and find them. I would offer that putting together a team of the city, county, NDOT, and who am I missing? City, county, MPO staff, to take a look at that and report back at the next MPO meeting on what they've been able to decide or determine. Can we put that up as an action item or a motion or what?
Madam Chair, I think we're in the section of our agenda that's called reports from staff, and I think we were talking about the 2050 MTP and getting a staff report. I think if there's additional conversations, maybe they're more appropriate at other times, but just want to keep this meeting.
And I was going to bring this up later on in the meeting, except somebody else brought the topic up for me, and so that began the discussion. I can bring it up again here at the back part of this agenda if you like. But that's exactly what I'm going to suggest. So we can all ponder that before we get to it. Thank you.
Okay, just a quick update on the 2026 to 2030 STIP. So the NDOT is in the process of updating their STIP, which is a federally mandated 4-year funding and scheduling document for surface transportation projects in Indiana. It includes federal, state, city, county transportation projects, multimodal projects, and projects in the national parks. So the STIP the folks at NDOT have provided some resources. They have scheduled public meetings, one of which will be held in Bloomington here in the chambers on April 30th. There are also virtual meetings available. There's a public comment form online and a map survey. So I just wanted to notify everybody about that. The meeting here will be April 30th, 4 to 6. Just a quick update on the federally funded projects. Updates as provided by engineers at the TAC meeting recently. So for the city, the North Dunn multi-use path project from Bypass to Griffey. The first round of public input for that took place on March 27th with an in-person meeting. First Street is wrapping up this spring. currently finishing asphalt surfacing at Fairview. Actually, I think the road recently opened in the past couple days. High Street, they are continuing to work on with NDOT on right-of-way acquisition. Construction is to start in early 2026 as of now. 2nd Street is currently waiting on environmental approval from NDOT. Contractor bids will be accepted starting in August. And the Beeline Trail extension is mostly complete, but a block of it is delayed a little bit for environmental remediation, but should wrap up in the spring. For county, the pedestrian trail crossing improvements project, which includes rapid flashing beacons at the crossings at 7 locations, at Clear Creek Trail, Bloomington Rail Trail, and Limestone Greenway. Those are going to be started in the spring and should be finished by June. The Karst Farm Trail project here, oops. Traffic signals and pedestrian crossing lights at the 2 intersections are now functional, and a walkthrough is happening soon, may have happened already. The Vernal Pike connector road and bridge at Sunrise Greetings Court, the beam setting is in progress. May have also happened, but weather's been sketchy. And the Fullerton Pike project, they are working on a sound wall for the next month, and cleanup and opening of Phase 1 from Wickens to Rockport should occur by early May. Moving on to State Road updates. You all know already what these updates are, so I won't spend any more time on that. There are NDOT communications in the packet if you want to look at those. And I just wanted to finally highlight some federal grants that were received by the LPAs. MPO staff did not assist with these grants, but we just want to help spread the good news so you can congratulate the applicants. There was a Federal Highway Safety Improvement Program Special Safety Call that was awarded in December. Neil from City of Bloomington Engineering received about $861,000. They'll be using that to modify and reconstruct curb ramps in downtown Bloomington areas for accessibility. Lisa applied for Monroe County and received about $500,000 to be used for improving safety in curve locations along Fairfax. And then the Community Crossings Matching Grant Program that was awarded in March 2025. Dana from Public Works and Neil from Engineering received about $760,000 to be used for maintenance, paving, guardrail, curb ramps on North Walnut from Bypass to just past Old 37. And Lisa received $1.5 million to be used for 28 miles of paving projects. Ellettsville also received almost $300,000. So congratulations to them.
And I'll say, actually, Steinsville applied for the first time, and they received their application awarded too. So,
Thank you.
any comments or questions from the board? And seeing none online. Moving to old business. Nothing listed. New business. Item A is the fiscal year 2024 to 28 TIP amendments.
Okay, we have one amendment here for your consideration. This is a, oops. Oh. Sorry. There we go. This is just a shift of federal state funding for the bridge thin deck overlay for Rockport Road and Tap Road bridges over I-69. They are shifting funding from 2028 to 2027. It is the same funding amounts. Sorry about that. Hopefully you could mostly hear me without my mic. So this TIP amendment is NDOT's request to move funding from 2028 to 2027 for the bridge thin deck overlay on Rockport and TAP over I-69. So because this is a change in fiscal year, we're required to get local approval, and so we are just requesting your adoption of this one proposed amendment to the TIP.
All right, any questions from the board? Moving it from a fiscal year and using STBG funds, that doesn't affect any other projects within the plan, is that correct?
This is all federal and state funding, so no.
Okay. Opie?
What was the reason why it's been moved up a year in terms of like this particular project as opposed to?
We have another group of thin deck overlays on I-69 in the county, and we wanted to bundle those together so we get economies of scale.
Okay, thanks, that makes sense.
Any other questions? So this would require a motion and a vote.
I guess one question, so this is the 2024 to 2028 TIP. Is it also going to need one in the 2024 to 2030 TIP? Or, because this is going to happen?
Everything that's approved up until July also gets updated in the new TIP. So no, we won't have to reapprove it later.
Okay,
Yeah.
great, thank you.
All right, do we have a motion?
I'll move to approve the TIP amendment, changing the year of letting. Is that the right? Okay.
So we have a motion, do we have a second?
I second and assume this is for the NDOT contract 45246 for dozen number 2300919 and 2300920.
That's correct. Do we have any questions from the board? Any public comment? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Jason Bannock,
Yes.
Lisa Ridge,
Yes.
Chris Wallman,
Yes.
Jody Madeira,
Yes.
Dan Swafford,
Yes.
Hopi Stossberg,
Yes.
Nate Nickel,
Yes.
Andrew Seabour,
Yes.
John Kennedy.
Yes.
I don't see David on video. Wait. I don't see David on there anymore. Scott Ferris.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, moving on to item B, the 2025-2026 Unified Planning Work Program adoption.
Okay, the Unified Planning Work Program represents our contract with the Federal Highway Administration, Federal Transit Administration, administered by NDOT. This is a requirement for the receipt of federal funding by all the local public agencies, including Bloomington Transit and Rural Transit. The budget this year was a cut of 9.9%. This is as a result of the statewide distribution for all the Group 2 cities under the population of 180 to 200,000, and we received that 9.9% cut. The work elements themselves remain the same as in the current fiscal year: administration and public participation, data collection, short-range planning and management systems, which is actually the Transportation Improvement Program. Long-range planning, that was reduced because of the completion of the MTP in the current year. And then transit and active transportation, and then finally, other planning initiatives and special projects such as Title VI initiatives. The appendices identify the current committee memberships of all three committees, the staff and the support personnel that'll be charged to the grant itself. The cost allocation plan is approval letter is identified in Appendix B. We have abbreviations, Metropolitan the MPA, Metropolitan Planning Area, Urbanized Area Map, which is just approved last fall. That was submitted in the summer of last year, and I believe that was approved in October, maybe November. We also have the legal publication notice and record of public comments. We received no public comments during the 30-day public comment period. Committee adoption resolution is there at the tail end. And then also we have self-certification statement, which was approved by by the Indiana Department of Transportation. Now, normally we would have what are called planning emphasis areas. These are what guide our efforts. Those planning emphasis areas were withdrawn by the U.S. Department of Transportation just in the past few weeks. We've also had a reorientation of emphasis areas too, for that matter, where we're to focus on other activities other than what we were told under the previous federal administration. So with that, I'll open up the door for any questions that anybody may have.
Did I just hear you say that the state already reviewed this and changed it because they didn't like what our goals were? Is that?
No, we submitted a draft document to the Department of Transportation roughly 3 weeks ago. They got back with us fairly quickly. All of the MPOs, there are 14 metropolitan planning organizations in Indiana. All of us are going through what I would call a rapid and fluid change with shifting and changing federal priorities. Things that were de-emphasized for all urban areas in the United States include climate change, greenhouse gas emissions, equality of any type, environmental justice of any type, Justice 40 initiatives, sustainability, cumulative impacts, and sea level rise. We were directed to remove references to all of those in our documents, and so therefore we did. This document was changing up until yesterday, for that matter. So what you have before us is what we've been directed to say and what we've been directed to work on or study or facilitate with the local public agencies and with the Department of Transportation and Bloomington Transit over the course of the next fiscal year, beginning July 1st to June 30th of next year. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and it gets it on the public record too. Thank you.
Okay.
So did you see any big difference between last year's and this year's allocation differences or restrictions that might affect the LPAs?
Several. Most significant of those is that we were, under the previous federal administration, we were directed to look at projects for environmental justice to ensure that what I would call Title VI, traditional Title VI and ADA communities were not adversely impacted by investment decisions. That changed in that we're no longer restricted to do that. We're still documenting that we, the MPO staff and all the MPOs in Indiana, are still documenting those because we look at investments in those areas as Title VI, meeting Title VI and ADA requirements. Those laws have not changed. You can take away the word environmental justice, but Title VI and ADA still remains. Any other questions? Anybody?
Are all these funds, are they
I'm sorry?
utilized the whole year? I mean, do we use this, do we use everything that's allocated? Or do
Yes.
we send some
Yes,
back?
yeah. Last year, we spent every penny.
Okay.
This year, we're on track. Well, actually, we spent more than what we had in our budget last year, and we took it up to the limit and zeroed out the entire grant last year. This year, we're on target to definitely zero it out, and then with the 9.9% cut in fiscal year 2026, we'll most assuredly expend the grant too. Yeah, we have had no surplus for the last 2 years and possibly this year too.
Great, thank you.
Uh,
So do we have a motion?
Well, I have another question.
Oh, sure, go ahead.
So I have another question, if nobody else does. I guess I also heard you say that there was no public comment during the public comment period. Is that correct? And I'm
Yes.
just kind of wondering, like, where that announcement was posted and how much this was advertised. I mean, I think that this is the fourth meeting that I've been to, and there's basically, I mean, there's nobody in this room right now outside of us. I don't know if there's anybody on Zoom. And as a body, you know, we kind of manage a lot of important things. And so I'm trying to figure out how much the public really knows or understands as part of this question, because it feels thoroughly wrong to approve something when there has literally been zero public participation in this.
Traditionally, for the last 8.5 years, I can tell you we've never had public comments.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear you, Pat.
Traditionally, for the past 8.5 years, I can tell you we never received public comments on the work program. The advertisement was in the Herald Times. We did a legal advertisement in the Herald Times on 2 specific dates, two consecutive dates. And then we also posted it on our website that was the draft document and that the public comment period was open. We encouraged the public comment. Contact us either by email or by phone. And again, we didn't receive any comments. And this isn't just for the work program. I mean, a lot of times we don't receive any comments on the transportation improvement program either.
Okay, thank you.
The primary form of advertisement for this one this year was a legal ad.
Any other questions? Comments? Scott?
Just a side comment to echo what we just heard. And I appreciate that you're meeting all the requirements to provide notifications in whatever form, or the HT in this case. But most of us understand that it's not getting very wide dissemination. And if you were to go out on the street and ask people about this, what this is, they wouldn't have a clue. And so the transparency piece of this is even though it's no fault of your own, there really is very little transparency because people don't even know what this stuff is, nor are they aware of it. And that's an ongoing problem. A lot has to do with our lack of media reporting and availability to most anybody who's willing to look this information up. They don't even know what's out there. So that's just a comment. Even though you're promoting transparency and you're doing what's required, it's not very transparent. Thank you.
Any other board comments? All right, do we have a motion? After a vote.
I move approval of the BMC MPO FY 25 to 26 Unified Planning Work Program.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. Do we have any board comments? Do we have any public comment? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Nate Nickel,
Yes.
Andrew Seaborg,
Yes.
Dan Swafford,
Yes.
Jason Bannock,
Yes.
John Kennedy,
Yes.
Jody Madeira, Jody Madeira,
Yes, I said yes before. Sorry if I was not audible.
Chris Wallman,
Yes.
Lisa Ridge,
Yes.
Hopi Stossberg,
Yes.
Scott Ferris.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, moving on to public comment on matters not included on the agenda. Seeing none. Communications from committee members on matters not included on the agenda. Item, either communications or topic suggestions for future agendas. Scott?
Okay, part two. I'm not going to repeat what I already said. But to add to what I did not say, and I think it's important to note, is that a lot has changed over the last, I don't know, few years, in particular with the city church, which is right up there off of Russell Road and 10th Street, State Road 45. That congregation now, I believe, is 1,400 people. I think they have 4 services now on Sunday, and they also have classes essentially every night of the week. Again, for those folks who live out in the area, you'd appreciate all this. The city church actually hires their own security to direct traffic on Sunday because there's so much congestion as they're coming out of their parking lot and exiting onto in 2 places, either on Russell Road or out of their parking lot further up on 45 10th Street. It is an absolute choke point for those folks who understand what a choke point is. You got one way in, one way out, and things just do not move. The other thing is, and I know that we have a person here who's familiar with the University Elementary School, there is a tremendous amount of traffic in the morning and in the afternoon with the parents dropping off and then picking up their children at that school. This is all in addition to all the bus traffic we have with the city, IU, and the school system. So that entire area that comes right on down to Smith Road, 10th Street, State 45, is a highly congested area during those peak times. What I'm requesting and what I'm recommending, and I'll even participate in, is a collegial group of individuals from the county, the city, MPO staff, and also NDOT that could meet and potentially come up with a way to fund, install, collaborate with one another to put a stoplight into that intersection of Smith Road, 10th Street, State Road 45. And I would ask that it meet within the next couple of weeks and report back to the MPOPC on what their findings are.
So as a LPA and committee chair, if one of the MPO staff would want to reach out, myself, county engineer, I know Andrew has stated that he would have conversation in the future for this request. and maybe kind of put us all together for a meeting for discussion, if that's possible.
I also think that would be a good idea.
This is an operations question, and MPO staff doesn't get involved in engineering operations. But yeah, we'll sit in.
Okay.
So can we ask for somebody to take the lead?
Yes, I will send a meeting invite out, and I will get that meeting scheduled.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other topics for discussion? Okay, upcoming meetings, Technical Advisory Committee meeting is April 23rd at 10 a.m. Citizens Advisory Committee, April 23rd at 5:30 p.m. And Policy Committee meeting, May 9th at 1:30, and all the meetings are available hybrid. And I would move for adjournment.